talking about a tricky topic. We're gonna talk about abuse because I feel like no one has really talked about this in the lesbian YouTube community yet. What would you consider abusive behavior when you're in a relationship with somebody?
I think there's lots of different types of abuse: physical, mental, emotional, sexual.
Those forms of abuse can be exhibited in many, many different ways, not just physical. You know, they could show up in forms of jealousy, or the other person being very controlling, or them having a lot of trust issues and taking those things out on you, or having violent outbursts of anger.
Any intent to cause harm, whether it be physical or emotional, when you are intentionally trying to do that to your partner, is abuse. I feel like in so many abusive relationships, something happens and then the next day they're like, I'm so sorry, baby. You know, but they have like an anger. Sometimes there's like a history of abuse in their family, so it seems like normal to them.
Have you ever been in an abusive relationship?
I would not say that I've been in an abusive relationship.
I think that I allowed this person to kind of like take certain parts of me. People can look and say that are good things, like me talking to people, having new friendships or whatever, and this person was so insecure that they made me feel horrible about being that type of person and like talking to all these people. They just assume that I'm just like trying to have sex with all these people, so they like tried to take that part of me away. You know, I've been in a situation where I've been, you know, hit by an ex or whatever, and she'll apologize for it and always have an excuse like, oh, I was drinking or was this. But we should never allow ourselves to get in that situation, especially if we love or care about each other. We should be respectful of each other and never allow those things to happen.
I have had friends that have been in abusive relationships. Most all of those that I know of, at least the knowledge that I had, were all forms of emotional abuse.
How did your friends reach out for help? Or like, did they at all? Did they talk to you about it? Did you just see it from afar and know what was going on?
I'm often a person that people come to talk to, especially now that I'm dating Chrissy as well, because we're both really good listeners. I think people who are being abused don't even realize they're being abused, and so, or they justify the people's actions, that they're, you know, why the person that they love is doing something like this. They would never try to hurt me, so they don't realize that they need to get out of that situation, or they just completely justify why that person's doing it.
Oh, now I've heard of the LGBT Center like having classes where, you know, people can come in and like speak to each other about this, but I didn't really have anywhere to go during then, so I would just try to talk to my friends or her friends and try to figure out how to handle the situation.
They have often not gone for help because either society or law enforcement doesn't take the threat seriously, or they feel like I should be able to handle this. You know, it's just another woman, she probably can't hurt me.
Do you think the abuser is more likely to be a feminine woman or a more masculine woman?
In my experience, people who have more, who are androgynous and lead more on the dominant personality have those more aggressive traits, and that's sad, but that's what I've noticed.
It's a mix. You never know. Like, I literally am thinking about all my friends' situations and relationships that can be abusive, and half of them are from the dominant partner. Actually, the dominant partner can be a stud, a stem, or a femme, like in different ways. So I think it's a mix of being split. It just depends on who kind of has that issue, and sometimes it's the issues of how that person grew up.
I would assume it's the more feminine one, at least if we're talking about emotional abuse, because I don't think girls get physical as often, but I think the more feminine is used to catty girls and handling problems through hurtful words.
Why do you think abuse in the lesbian community is a topic that no one on YouTube has really talked about yet?
The reason potentially could be is that the people who would be talking about this issue haven't experienced it, or the people who have experienced it on YouTube don't feel comfortable talking about it, or people don't realize that it's actually a problem. It has to be one of those three.
I think it's just like the YouTubers that are on the internet, like probably a lot of them haven't gone through this scenario, and then the ones that have gone through this are probably not at the point yet where they're able to talk about it. I think it's something that we definitely need to talk about.
The lesbian community might not talk about this because there's also not a lot of knowledge about it. There's not a lot of people speaking out. They feel as though people won't take it very seriously.
You don't talk about it so much because you can hide it. There aren't bruises, it's not physical most likely, so it's really easy to hide, and you're not typically yelling at them in front of a big group of people. It would be all behind closed doors. I think that's why it's not talked about a lot.
How do you think we can become more aware and helpful as a community together?
When somebody says, this really hurts me, and then somebody else says, yeah, but somebody else is going through something way worse than you, you're taking away from that person's reality. You have to validate the way the person feels. You have to allow people to have their truth and their pain.
Be a good friend. If you see a friend going through this, let them know that that whatever they're going through in their relationship is not normal. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what I've done to some of my friends. Sometimes they cut you off. They don't want to hear that. They want to keep being in this relationship with somebody, but sometimes it'll get through to them and you can actually help them.
By sharing stories, like you telling people what you went through, so then they can watch and say, oh my gosh, this is exactly what is happening to me. I didn't even realize it's abuse. And through your whole journey, they can understand it and relate.
Have you ever been with a woman that's a touch-me-not that has orgasmed just from going down on you?
Yeah, I've done that too.
You've orgasmed just from going down on a girl?
Yeah.
What's your name and how do you identify?